I'm Brian Van from sportbiketrackgear.com, and today we're going to install a pair of Woodcraft frame sliders on our 2014 STG Yamaha FZ-09 project bike. Woodcraft offers some of the finest products in the industry. The main reason behind that is the guy behind the designs, Eric Wood, owner of the company. Longtime motorcycle racer and enthusiast. He designs these products from the perspective of necessity of the user, right? It needs to make sense, it needs to work. When he goes through the prototype phases, a lot of the stuff, like these frame sliders that we're going to show you in a second, he's actually used them, fallen on them, given them to friends that he races with. They've tested them, fallen on them, and he uses all that data that he collects to come up with a final design that really works. And their frame slider is one of the most unique in the industry, and I'll add, one of the most effective. The kit that we're going to install today on our FZ-09 is going to use their black plastic slider bikes. If you want a little more bling, we do have available options with their anodized aluminum caps in either red, blue, or chrome. Personally, I like the look of the black plastic. You'll see it's machined inside to interact with the base. It's got a logo etched on it. When we're done with the install, you want the logo on the top, the blank space on the bottom. The fastener that holds the puck to the mounting base is a tapered head Allen fastener. Right here. You'll see the puck interacts with the base like so. You line up the holes, thread this through, and when the bolt passes through, the bolt is a little larger than the hole here in that puck. So it's actually going to act with the plastic sliders like Loctite. So there's no need for thread locker on these bolts, as they will not back out. The instructions that come with the kit. They're pretty basic, but they get right to the point. This motorcycle is naked. There's no fairings to cut. That makes this install really easy. It's going to take an 8mm Allen, a 5mm Allen, and some anti-seize to pull this project off. So I think this is something any FZ-09 owner can do. The only other tool that you may want to use, if you choose to use a torque wrench, would be that. I've wrenched for 20 years on Cadillacs before I began this business, so I've got a good feel for torque, right? And I'll show you kind of how I do that. If you're not that confident, use your torque wrench, look for a torque spec online, and torque the fastener to spec. Going through the instructions, one of the things they're going to ask you to do is use some anti-seize on any bolt that goes into the aluminum case on the engine. In our case, this is going into the aluminum cylinder head up here. So we're going to want to make sure that we do use the anti-seize just like they've asked. Beyond that, at the very bottom it says the longer base goes on the left side with the longer bolt. And that really makes sense because you'll see the cases on the other side protrude farther out from the motorcycle than they do on the brake side. Okay, so we need the longer setup is going to go on the clutch side, and the shorter of the two setups is going to be over here on the brake side. Let's go ahead and get the frame sliders out. We're ready to install. What I'm going to do when I break this bolt loose is I'm going to kind of get a feel for the amount of torque that it came with from the factory. Okay? And what I'm just going to replicate that when I tighten this frame slider base down. So the torque is essentially the same. You only really need a dot of anti-seize. You spread it on the threads down here at the lower part, and as it threads its way in there, it's going to spread it around all on its own. Quick suggestion here, these are rather fine threaded bolts. Begin them by hand. So what I'm going to do is I took off the Allen socket so I can begin these threads by hand. You do not want to cross thread motor mount bolts. It's important to note too that you rotate the threaded portion of the mounting base upwards to get the frame slider puck oriented properly. I'm going to go ahead and seat that down by hand, like so. And I'm going to use my T-handle. Kind of replicate the torque that we had from the factory. Next step is the frame slider puck. Let's go ahead and slide that bad boy over. Pass that fastener through. You can feel it really start to tighten up as it begins to pass through that slider puck. 5mm T-handle here. Snug that up. You don't need to go crazy with that, just get it nice and tight, because that tapered head is also going to interact, right, with the tapered seat on the frame slider puck, and then you've got it passing through the tighter portion here on that plastic slider puck, so it's going to hold itself in there real nicely. Now what I'd like you to really focus on right now is you'll see that the end of the frame slider protrudes past the end of the clutch cover right here, so it's going to protect the clutch cover nicely in case the bike has a tip over. When we come back, we're going to be installing the left side. Okay, now to install the left side at the end of the day, all we're going to be doing is just repeating the process. When I refer to it as clutch side, talking about the lever. Clutch side, brake lever, brake side. T-handle, 8mm Allen head. Once again, just kind of get a feel for that torque. Another tip here, save your engine mount bolts. Put these somewhere where you're not going to lose them, because you never know what might happen in the future. You might want to put these back in, so do not discount it. Okay, same deal. Remember, we've got the longer mounting base being used on this side, and you can clearly see the reason why the engine case cover protrudes further out from this side, and that's really what you want to protect. Let's go ahead and get a little dab of anti-seize, put it on the leading edge of those threads. Let's go ahead and pull our Allen socket from there. I start it by hand, really important. And we'll get that seated. Well, I gotta tell you, this thing's so easy to work on. I wish I could race a naked bike. And let's go ahead and just right there, feels good. And now our frame slider puck. I like the look of the black puck personally. Stealthy. And what's nice too about the plastic is, if in fact you do drop the motorcycle, the plastic is able to manage the impact a little better than the aluminum. The aluminum is going to transfer a lot more energy over to the motorcycle. Yeah, it might be a little blingier, but think about it. You've got hard metal hitting hard asphalt or concrete. It's really not going to be able to manage it very well. But with the plastic can distort a little bit when it hits the ground and kind of help manage that impact, right? And perhaps preserve the bike a little bit better. That's it. That's a really simple install. And what we want to do now is we're just going to get some close-ups as we finish this video, just so you can see that the frame sliders protrude far enough from the end of the engine cases to give you some good protection in that area.